Good morning and welcome to Deep South Dining right here on MPB Think Radio. It's Monday morning, it's President's Day, and good morning to you, Carol.
Good morning, Mel. How are you doing?
I'm good. Happy President's Day.
And to you as well.
Okay, well, how was your week?
You're the president of the Culinary Club.
I'd be happy to be president. I'll serve a term if you'll serve a term. I don't want to be the president permanently.
I know.
Yeah. Well, what kind of week have you had? I saw you at a little social gathering somewhere
a little
about
Valentine's gathering.
It was very nice.
It was beyond fabulous, and the food was beyond fabulous. And anytime there is a entire table devoted to desserts,
we're happy.
I'm happy.
There were a lot. There was a caramel. There was a chocolate. There were the strawberries. It was so good. My favorite dish was the crab cakes and the salmon. That was my favorite.
Well, our friend Donna Barksdale is always the perfect hostess. But if you had come around to the dessert table, I know you were at the savory table.
Well, I moved from savory to sweet. Go ahead.
In little demi-tasse cups of caramel butterscotch pudding, and then they had these little
I ate 2 of those
wedding cake bites. I'm so glad I ate 2 of them,
good.
As well. Anyway, it was a happy Valentine's Day.
Right. Well, we had a nice dish Kara concocted over the weekend. We took the very last bag of frozen tomatoes from last summer's garden, from David and Melissa Patterson's garden. This was our last bag, and I thought, man, this is great. We made it all the way to February on our tomatoes
That
in the
is
freezer.
something.
So we took this last bag and made this fabulous tomato sauce and had it on fettuccine and onions, garlic, tomatoes, olive oil. Nothing crazy. A little bit of oregano, thyme, and some basil. Really nice, and it was so great to taste summer on a cold day in February.
I agree.
Yeah, it was good.
Now, I took tomatoes and went the opposite way.
Where'd you go?
I had a hearty winter dish, and this is one of my favorite dishes that I've cooked over the past couple of years. It is Moroccan chicken stew.
Oh, yeah.
And it is from the wonderful, wonderful cookbook from Vish Bhatt. It is called I'm From Here.
Yes.
And it's his journey, from being from India to being just really a fixture in the Southern restaurant scene. In fact, he's won a James Beard Award for Best Chef of the South. And to see his combinations, but this Moroccan chicken stew has so many elements in it. It was truly like having a party in your mouth. I know people say, but it was true.
Well, that's a Dr. John line from the old Popeyes commercials.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, he'd say, "There's a party in my mouth." That's where that comes from.
Well, let me tell you, this party started with tomatoes and garlic and onions, like so many things do. But you actually make a Moroccan spice that has, turmeric, cardamom, fennel seed. You grind all that up. It's so wonderful. You have green olives in the dish.
I'm already tasting
chopped dried figs. Wow. And besides, there is some chicken.
Yeah, you throw a little bird in there.
Yeah, all that good stuff cooks down with lemon slices, and then, you add lemon zest. It was just a beautiful dish, and I just can't say enough about that book.
Great. Yeah, it's a
here.
fabulous book. If you don't have it,
Bhatt, Oxford, Mississippi.
Right.
I'm hoping that Adrian Miller, our guest for today, is hearing this, because he's nodding on Zoom because he graces Oxford, Mississippi with his presence every now and then.
I had the great honor to go to Morocco once and eat some of the foods that you just described. And the spices, the cornucopia of spices that are out daily on the streets and in the city square, the street, are amazing. But Morocco is a very special place, and shout out to Vish for gracing us with that recipe in his fabulous book, I Am From Here.
Yeah, and then I was digging into our Cooking and Coping Facebook site to see what everybody was cooking over the weekend to get a little inspiration. And I'm hoping that you saw the wonderful banh mi, the Vietnamese banh mi that Sue Bunnyran made. It was a vegetarian one. It was this long, like 2 feet long.
It was huge. But it was a vegetarian banh mi.
Yeah, and she does such a beautiful job with all her food. But that spoke to me. And then the other thing was Mary Woodward, who is just a great poster, had a bottle of comeback dressing with a stack of saltines. And that's been such a great meal for so many of us.
Southern culture in a jar.
It is Southern culture in a jar.
Absolutely.
And the reason that Howlin' Mal's now has come back in the little nut cups is because my friends and I used to come empty the bottles with saltine crackers for our meal.
Well, it happens.
Yeah.
It's an hors d'oeuvre. It's a redneck hors d'oeuvre, as I always say. Well, we're going to take a short break, and we'll come back. Oh, by the way, we got mail.
We got mail?
We got this in the mail just now, and it is a book from the American Test Kitchen, Baking for Two. I think this is genius, because so much baking is volume baking. This is 200 plus small batch recipes from lazy bakers to layered cakes. And it's a lot of recipes for baking for two. 2 cinnamon rolls, 2 Danish.
Who knew that you could make 2 of anything?
Cookies. What a great
idea.
idea.
I bet that we got this because we had Tony Tipton Martin, who is the editor of Country Living and involved with America's Test Kitchen, on our show.
Well, we're glad to have it.
Yeah, we'll start cooking
We'll talk
through
more
this.
about it
later
down the road.
Because you know who we have coming up.
We got a dude coming up now who drops knowledge like hot biscuits, and we're ready to get dropped on by the one and only Adrian Miller. And we're grateful. I think he's on the road, but he has joined us via technology. We'll take a short break. We'll come right back, and we appreciate you joining us this morning. Stay tuned. If you have questions, comments, it's toll-free. It's 1-877-672-7464. You're going to want to ask Adrian a few things. This is Deep South Dining right here on MPB Think Radio. We'll be right back.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bobby Rush. As a blues man, I love Mississippi Public Broadcasting. If you support Mississippi music and their local programming, donate now, right now, and become a member today, not tomorrow. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Doesn't matter how big or small, but we prefer big. Thank you very much.
Dr. Susan Buttress asks the hard questions on Southern Remedy, relatively speaking.
Can you forgive anyone, anytime, for anything? Do we know how to have a healthy relationship? Have you heard this statement, who am I to judge? Have we taken a hard look at what we're doing as adults? Are you feeling happy?
Find out our answers to these questions by listening to the Southern Remedy, relatively speaking podcasts, or listen live Tuesdays at 11 on MPB Think Radio.
For this moment in Black history, Robin Roberts was born in Tuskegee, Alabama in 1960 and moved to Pass Christian, Mississippi when she was 8 years old. In 1983, she began her career as a sports reporter at WDAM-TV in Hattiesburg. And in 1990, she made history as the first Black female on-air sportscaster at ESPN. Roberts' mother was the first African-American to lead Mississippi's Board of Education, and father was a World War II Tuskegee Airman. This has been a moment in Black history.
We're back, and we hope you are as well. This is South Dining on MPB Think Radio. Excuse me, Malcolm White with Carol Palmer. Good morning, Carol.
Hey, Mal. Good morning again.
Got a frog in my throat. Ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. Well, we're so excited today to have an old friend of the show back on. Going back to 2020, Adrian joined us. He's also joined us once more since then. I think this will be his third appearance, if I'm not mistaken. He's been so gracious to join us each and every time he publishes a new book or is available to chat with us, because he is a cornucopia of wealth and knowledge. And as I said, he drops knowledge like a hot biscuit. Carol, would you please welcome our very special guest?
I will indeed. And Malcolm, I was going to remind you that when we started this show in 2020, in March of 2020, at the first of COVID, Adrian was at the top of our list, and we were so thrilled when he said yes. But Adrian, I'm going to introduce you low and slow here. So, first of all, Adrian Miller is someone we got to know in Southern Foodways. And Adrian and I served on the board together, so for, I guess, 6 or 8 years. But Adrian has always been a celebrity to me, but now he is to the rest of the world as a scholar of Black culinary history. And he is a recovering attorney, went to Georgetown Law School, worked in the Clinton White House, among many things he's done, but he has now gone from legal briefs to recipes and culture. It's been a long journey. He has 3 fabulous books out, and both of us have all 3. The Soul Food book was just amazing, and then The President's Kitchen Cabinet, which is the story of African Americans who have fed presidents, and then Black Smoke, which won, well, Black Smoke and Soul Food won James Beard Awards for cookbooks. But welcome, Adrian.
Hey, good to be with you.
Well, it's so great to see you. Do you happen to be in Chicago today?
I am in Chicago, where it is currently a balmy 3 degrees. Wind chill factor is minus 12.
Ooh.
Well,
Yes.
I know you are a Colorado guy, but we happened to see that you were doing a dinner in Chicago tonight.
Yeah, so I'm teaming up with a chef named Lamar Moore. He has a restaurant called Etc. in downtown Chicago. And so we are celebrating the Nelson Mandela State Dinner meal that is featured in my book. And so I have recipes from that. So I reached out to him. I said, hey, it'd be fun to have an event on President's Day where we replicate the meal, and I'll tell people kind of what it's like to be at a state dinner, what happened that night, especially with Whitney Houston serenading President Mandela. And then also we were having presidential cocktails, so I'll be telling some drinking stories as well.
That is just so interesting. So the Mandela State Dinner was during the Clinton administration,
Right.
and it was in 1994. And let's just start off and talk about the chef at that dinner and the actual dinner, and then tell us what you're doing tonight.
Yeah, so the chef at that dinner who created that meal was a man named Patrick Clark. He's no longer with us, but he was a highly regarded African-American chef in New York. He's the first African-American chef to win a James Beard Award for the best chef category. He was celebrated by all kinds of people. I mean, even Anthony Bourdain, who does not suffer fools, was giving this guy his flowers while he was still alive. So the Clintons were very interested in having him become White House chef. He worked at the Hay Adams Hotel, which is very, very close to the White House. So they were sending staff over there to interview him, quote unquote, by eating his food. And when they offered the job, he turned it down because it was too much of a pay cut, because he was making $500,000 reportedly at the Hay Adams Motel, and the White House executive chef salary at that time was $58,000.
That won't get it.
That would be a cut, but good for him making the big bucks in a restaurant.
Yep. So they remembered him, and then when they decided to have the state dinner for Nelson Mandela, they invited him to create the meal, which he did. And the meal is this. It was the idea of, ever since Hillary Clinton, really, was instead of just serving French food, which was done for decades, she said, no, we're going to celebrate American ingredients and then create dishes that give a flavor profile that's a nod to the visiting dignitary. So they leaned into kind of South African flavors. So the first course was late summer vegetables with lemongrass and red curry, kind of a nod to the Asian influence in South Africa. The next was a dish called halibut with wasabi and sesame seed crust. So halibut is very similar to a very popular fish in South Africa called kingklip. So they kind of swapped that out. And then they had an endive and cheese kind of salad. Because in the White House, for the state dinners, they do the salad and cheese course later in the meal, kind of a European.
A French style, a European style.
Yeah. And then the final dish was a grenadilla sorbet, which is basically passion fruit with lychee fruit and raspberries and then shortbread cookies. So that was the meal.
Pretty yummy.
Yeah, especially for this time of the morning, but that halibut is speaking to me.
Yeah.
Sesame crusted halibut.
Oh, and I forgot, with Chef Clark's signature carrot broth. That was kind of his signature. So he added that as the sauce for the halibut. So the interesting thing is, after he created this meal, he was prepping it and everything. And at the last minute, the Clintons said, you know what? We don't want you to actually cook this meal. We want you to sit at the table with President Mandela. So he was treated as a celebrity that night. So that was a nice kind of touch to the whole experience.
So Adrian, on the White House theme, just for a second, wasn't Andre Rush the chef for the Clintons?
So yeah, he gets people ask me about him a lot. So for those who don't know, Andre Rush is a professional bodybuilder, very big guy. What the kids would call swole these days, how muscular he is. So he is not a permanent chef. The White House kitchen is really small, and so when they do state dinners and other things, they have to hire additional chefs to actually help execute the meal. So he was hired just as a temporary chef to help prepare that meal. But he has that iconic photo of him, muscles bulging, dicing vegetables or whatever he was doing. So yeah.
Now, is he also the current White House chef?
No. So the
Okay.
White House chef is a guy named Tommy Kurpradit,
Okay.
who was on staff after Christetta Comerford, who's been in that position for 19 years, retired in the last summer. He's been the interim chef until President Trump decides to either keep him there or pick someone else.
Gotcha. And Carol, if I'm not mistaken, Andre Rush is from Columbus, Mississippi.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I believe I'm right about that.
Adrian, I bet it was a lot of fun researching your chefs at the White House book.
It was because, I didn't even really think about this, especially while I was in the White House, because I had top secret clearance. So I could actually have hung out in the kitchen. But I just, I'm one of these dudes that if I'm not supposed to be someplace, I don't go. Of course, I regret that now. But,
makes for a good story.
Yeah. So I just really hadn't thought about that heritage until I started writing the Soul Food book, and I came across a few stories of African Americans who had cooked for our presidents. So once I finished that book, I said, you know what, let me just chase this and see what I found. And I identified through my own research 150 chefs, and every president since George Washington has had an African American cook for them in some capacity, either in the White House kitchen, in the presidential mansion, before the White House was built, when they traveled by yacht, train, or Air Force One, or many times they would go someplace and stay for a while, and a local family would loan their black cook to the president just to ingratiate themselves with the first family and get that great food. So it's a great, great legacy.
So tell us about, was it Zephyr Wright who was the LBJ chef?
Yeah, Zephyr Wright from Marshall, Texas, actually same area as Lady Bird Johnson. She gets hired to be the family cook shortly after the Johnsons get married. And a lot of people ascribe Johnson's rise in Congress to Zephyr Wright's food, because this is going to sound like a fairy tale. Okay, you ready for this?
We're ready.
Once upon a time, Malcolm and Carol, White House people in Congress would get together and have dinner and socialize and get to know each other.
Really?
They would invite each other over for dinner.
Hey, Malcolm, this is a fairy tale.
Oh, right.
So people would not pass up Zephyr Wright's food. She was known for her popovers, kind of a quick bread, her chili, her peach cobbler, all these Southern favorites. And so one interesting anecdote, though, is that after Kennedy gets assassinated and Johnson's president, and he wants to carry on Kennedy's civil rights legislation, he actually uses the Jim Crow experiences of Zephyr Wright in the South to marshal support for that bill. And when he signs the bill, when presidents sign bills, they have 70 pens or whatever. He gives her one of the pens and says, "You deserve this as much as anyone."
Wow.
Yeah, I think that was my knowledge of her, that she had something to do with the Civil Rights Bill and that she was actually at the signing. But I did not realize that she had been their cook throughout their marriage.
Yes. Yep.
It's a long way from Marshall, Texas to the White House kitchen.
It is. But she's one of the most interesting people that served, one of my favorite cooks that I discovered. One of the saddest things is that she, because Johnson had heart attack, and so she was actually doing a lot of low-calorie cooking. And she was going to write a low-calorie cookbook. And this would have been in the 70s, right, the early 70s, but she just never got to publish that.
Wow. Oh, wow. Well, I follow you religiously on social media, and so I keep up with where you are and what you're doing, and I was so thrilled a few weeks ago to see that you have a new book coming out, and for our listeners, it's Asian Heritage Chefs in the White House. Is that the name?
Yep, and then it's called Cooking to a President's Taste.
Yeah, okay, well, I have pre-ordered it, and and I noticed it is published by the White House Historical Society, so they must be a big fan after your presidential cookbook.
Yes, and I'm so thrilled that they are publishing it, because they are bringing a lot of resources that I would not have had access to, some historical photos. They've got a staff to make sure that all the history is correct, because sometimes, if you don't have access to certain records, you're going off what newspapers report, which for the most part is accurate, but sometimes, reporters get it wrong. But it's a fascinating story. This comes out of writing that book on Black chefs in the White House. I discovered a couple of Asian American chefs, and some immigrants, some citizens. And I thought, well, let me chase that. And the quick story is, after the Spanish-American War, white naval officers started showing a marked preference for Asians as their cooks and servants. And this included the people who were captains on the presidential yacht. We had a yacht until our beloved late president Jimmy Carter sold it in the 70s. And so that's how Asians start getting into presidential hospitality. And then eventually they get assigned to the White House as well. So it's a tradition that goes back to the late 1800s.
Wow. Hey, so your book, Black Smoke, I love and I reference from time to time. Have you had any good Q lately? Are you still judging barbecue contests?
I'm not judging barbecue as much lately, because being a barbecue judge now is coveted. If you're not at your computer when they open up the slots for this barbecue judging positions and contests, you're going to be on the wait list. It's like winning the lottery.
Okay.
It's like, back in the day of Southern Foodways Alliance, if you weren't ready when the registration opened, you were going to.
You had 17 minutes, or you were not going to be there.
Well, I cannot believe that they wouldn't be clamoring for Adrian Miller as a judge. I mean, that you have to go through the normal process after you wrote the book on African American barbecue.
Yeah. So I haven't judged a lot lately. I would say the last really good barbecue experience I had was Moo's Barbecue in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But the last kind of really interesting barbecue experience I had was in Egypt, in Cairo. I was over there to talk to some chefs about Black food traditions, and a chef came up afterwards and said, "It would be my great honor if you came to my barbecue restaurant." And I'm thinking, okay, whatever. But, he extended the invitation, so I went. So I go out to his restaurant on the outskirts of Cairo. The first thing I see is a giant golden steer. Like a statue.
My goodness.
Yep. Longhorn steer. The place is called Longhorn Barbecue in English. They have a huge smokers like you would see in Texas. Everything's in English. They've got every sports logo from Texas teams, and they've got saddles for seating. So when the chef saw me coming, he comes to the door, opens it, and says, "Welcome to Texas."
Oh, that is funny. Well, I noticed that you were posting a link to nominations for the Barbecue Hall of Fame. And I wanted our listeners to know, because, we cover quite a bit of area with our radio show, several states. And is there anything you want to say about the Barbecue Hall of Fame or how people can nominate?
Yes, I've been serving on there for several years now. Some of our friends are on the nominating committee with me. So we're looking for people to nominate. So if you know someone who runs a restaurant, who's in the competition circuit, various aspects, and it doesn't have to be somebody who's alive. If somebody was, a big barbecue legend but has passed on, we have a legacy category as well. So we just want people to nominate. And believe it or not, you can nominate yourself. And if anybody knows about barbecue circles, the self-promotion is part of the secret sauce when it comes to barbecue. So please send in your nominations, because we have a committee that will go through those things and then narrow down the list. So
what do they do? Just search for Barbecue Hall of Fame? How do you submit?
Yeah, you go to the American Royal Barbecue Hall of Fame and you pull up the website, and then it's pretty clearly marked how to nominate. And you can just click on that link and just go through the nomination process. And then we will announce in May.
Great. So, Adrian, there are a lot of barbecue styles that are famous. The Memphis, Alabama, Carolinas, et cetera, et cetera. Does Colorado have a barbecue style where you live?
We do, but unfortunately we've gotten away from it. So we used to be known for bison and lamb. Colorado lamb is recognized worldwide and celebrated. And a lot of people even in Colorado don't know that. But for whatever reason, because we used to have a lamb barbecue contest in the mountains, because we've had a lot of Basque sheep herders that came to this area. And so that kind of really jump-started the lamb tradition. It was called the Mile High Cook-Off, but they abandoned it in the 90s. So we just really haven't celebrated our own style. And so Colorado barbecue now is marked by styles from other places being celebrated. You're probably seeing this in Mississippi as well. I mean, Texas has just kind of taken over the barbecue world.
Yeah. It's all about the brisket.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, look, there's a beautiful, diverse world of barbecue. Let's just celebrate all of it. We don't have to eat Central Texas all the time.
Right.
It's delicious, but we don't have to have it all the time. So I'm trying to spread the word to let's explore and celebrate these other types of barbecue.
Carol, Adrian said something on one of our previous interviews that has stuck with me like a biscuit to my side, and that was, we were talking about ribs, and people were bragging about falling off the bones, and Adrian said, I don't want my rib meat falling off the bones. I want a little pull.
Yeah, because it's overcooked, right? It can still taste good, but it's overcooked.
Is pull one of the things that you look for when you're a barbecue judge and you're judging ribs?
Yeah, so that's part of the texture kind of part of it. So yeah, we want a little bit of pull. You're looking at the appearance of it. You're not supposed to look for a smoke ring, but everybody does. And the reason you're not supposed to, because somebody who really knows what they're doing, they can fake a smoke ring. But, everybody looks for that. So yeah, taste, texture, and appearance. And then the idea is that once you bite on a rib, for example, if there's a little bit of pull, the meat should still come off the bone, and then it should turn white once exposed to the air.
Hey, Mal.
There you go.
Sounds like barbecue al dente.
Oh, well.
That's how I have my chitlins. I have them al dente. I'm just kidding. I'm just playing.
So I was telling Carol that NBC's running this month-long series about viewing. It's Black History Month, but through the lens of food. I don't know if you've seen any of this, but Jessica Harris has a full episode. There's a whole episode about Juneteenth and the chef who bought some land in South Carolina. I can't think of her name. And a variety of. I just stumbled into it streaming last night. But it's the Today Show's Black History Month celebration through the lens of through the lens of food. I thought it was really interesting, and I just sort of happened onto it last night.
Oh, thanks. That's the kind of intel that I need. I will definitely.
Yeah, tune into Deep South Dining. We've got the intel. Adrian, I saw that you paid a visit, I think it was recently, to St. Petersburg, Florida. My first hint that you were there is you were doing a shout out for where to eat. And I thought, what is Adrian doing in St. Petersburg? So you want to tell us about that experience?
Sure. So the Episcopal Diocese of Southwest Florida invited me to St. Peter's Cathedral in St. Petersburg to do a presentation for their Absalom Jones Sunday. So every year, the Episcopal Church celebrates Absalom Jones, who was the first African-American priest in that faith tradition. My faith tradition is African Methodist Episcopal, and so Absalom Jones and Richard Allen, the founder of my religion, faith tradition, they were buddies, and so they invited me out. They had a celebration where I talked about the theology of soul food, and then we had a worship service, and then after that we had a slamming soul food meal. So they had a couple hundred people. People were digging my corny jokes. So yeah, it was good. Sold out all my books. So yeah, it was a great experience.
Well, I see that the event was entitled "I'm Going to Eat at the Welcome Table," and I wanted to talk a little bit about the welcome table. But Malcolm is signaling me that we're going to first take a break, and when we come back, let's talk about that.
We're going to take a break and continue to talk about breaking bread together.
Yes.
So we'll take a short break. Hope that you'll rejoin us after that. More Deep South Dining on MPB Think Radio. Malcolm White, Carol Palmer, today with our very special guest, Adrian Miller. And if you would like to join the conversation, it's really easy. It's toll-free. It's 1-877-672-7464. More Adrian Miller after a very short break.
Since 1970, MPB has been enriching the lives of Mississippians.
Everything we do gives us the chance to grow and learn.
With your support, we are always there whenever and wherever you need us. Together through the years, together in the future. Please consider making a donation at mpbfoundation.org. MPB, your stories, our mission.
The fastest woman in the world was from Sand Hill, Mississippi. Tori Bowie, Rankin County native and gold medal Olympian from the 2016 Rio de Janeiro Games, passed away at the age of 32 in 2023 after conquering the world in sprint events and the long jump. The three-time NCAA All-American track and field elite athlete was also a fashion designer. We will always remember Tori Bowie. This has been an MPB Moment in Black History.
On the original Southern Remedy, your health is our main concern. I'm Dr. Jimmy Stewart, Professor of Internal Medicine and Pediatrics at the University of Mississippi Medical Center, ready to answer your medical questions.
I sleep with a CPAP, and I just been using regular tap water. Is that not a good thing?
I'm 78 years old, and I have hot flashes that are horrible.
The original Southern Remedy has the answers to your questions every Wednesday morning at 11 on MPB Think Radio.
South Dining right here on MPB Think Radio. Malcolm White, Carol Palmer, and our great friend, probably been on more times than any other guest that we've ever had. Carol, would you say that?
I would say so.
And boy, are we grateful.
Every time he writes a book or makes some pronouncement, we call and reel him in.
If he goes to Florida, we're there.
I know it.
Or wherever he goes.
To Africa, yes.
He's in Chicago now. And we're there with him. So let's talk about the new book a little bit. This will be number 4, Adrian?
That's right, yeah.
The Asian Heritage Presidential Chefs Cooking to the President's Taste, out in May of 2025, it says here.
Yeah, so it's coming soon. So while I was writing the Black Chefs in the White House book, I came across a book by a man named Lee Ping Kwan, who was the presidential yacht chef for Warren Harding, Calvin Coolidge, and Herbert Hoover. And he wrote a memoir cookbook. So at that point, that was really the first kind of memoir cookbook that we've ever seen for a presidential cook. So I was fascinated by that. The book was published in 1939, and it kind of fell into obscurity. So my initial thought was just to reprint it as a historical kind of document. But I reached out to the White House Historical Association. They said, well, do you know about any other Asian Americans who have cooked for our presidents? And I said, you know what? I actually do. Because I had a lot of spare time. So, I just go through historical newspapers. So I come across a few of them. And so the first chefs that I identified were on the presidential yacht for William McKinley. There were a couple, there was a Chinese immigrant who was cooking when Theodore Roosevelt negotiated the peace between Russia and Japan, the Russo-Japanese War, to which he won a Nobel Prize. And so they attributed, Loy was the man's name. They attributed some of the success to his cooking. There was another guy named Shiro Terasaki who cooked from Taft all the way to Hoover. And then you've got Lee Ping Kwan for those presidents. And then you get a number of Filipinos who start working in presidential hospitality. Eisenhower had a chef named Chef Pedro Udo, who was his White House executive chef. And then Christetta Comerford was the White House executive chef from the second term of George W. Bush until just last July. So, and we pick out some other people as well. I mentioned Tommy Kerr-Pradditt, who's the current White House chef. He gives his story. And then Edward Lee, who's,
Korean, yeah.
Yeah, Korean. He did the state dinner for the Korean president, and Anita Lowe, who did the state dinner for the Chinese president. They both have contributed the complete state dinner meals. So the first half of the book, the first half of the book is kind of biography and history, and then the second part of the book is recipes. So you'll be able to cook what these chefs cooked.
Fabulous.
Oh, sounds great. Well, I want to get back to the welcome table and the concept of the welcome table and ask you to share with our listeners.
Yeah, so in the Christian faith tradition, there's this thing called radical hospitality. And the idea there is that, everybody should be welcomed into a space, regardless of who they are, their background, whatever. It's just like, you're a child of God. I'm looking at you in God's image, and I'm loving you as a fellow human being. And, one of the best places to do that is at the table, where when you sit down at the table, that's when you recognize somebody as a human, right? You get to know each other. You're hopefully eating some good food. And I tell people all the time, cooking is an act of love. When somebody makes food for you, they're saying that they care for your survival. Even if the food is straight nasty, the act is still meaningful.
Oh, that's funny.
That's a good one.
Well, so is the welcome table associated with the African church, the African American church? Because I see that. I see it.
Yeah. So it was one of the metaphors from the early Black church. And a lot of it had to deal with just the reality of African Americans at the time, especially as enslaved people. They were food insecure, a lot of times by design. So the good life, having a bountiful table, that was a sign of the good life. And it's not just unique to the Black faith tradition. I mean, even if you look at the Hebrew Bible and Jewish tradition, right, the land of milk and honey. So these images of abundant food reverberate throughout cultures. But in the Black community, the idea of a welcome table, plentiful with food, and you're sitting there with other people, getting to know each other, without these strict social codes like saying, you're Black and you're white, you can't eat together, and these other things all are dissolved, right? And so everybody's welcome at that table. And so it's a powerful metaphor that's been around since the 19th century in Black
I love that idea of radical hospitality.
Yeah, I've heard that used by some restaurateurs sort of as a pledge or an ideal. Adrian, are you still practicing law?
Oh, heck no.
Okay. I wasn't sure. I knew that you were a recovering lawyer, but
Well, yeah, let me just tell you, Malcolm, when I practiced law, it just wasn't for me. It got to the point where I was singing spirituals in my office. And just to show you how rough it was in my office, when I would start singing, white people would join in.
Oh, Adrian, I think we got to know you when you were in that transition. And, I love the world that you've created for yourself that more mirrors your soul.
Yeah. And I have to thank I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say you're now the executive director of the American Council for Churches. Is that or Colorado Council?
Yeah, Colorado Council for Churches. Yes. So what we do is we get churches to get to know each other across denominational silos. And then the idea is that we build on those relationships to do social justice work. Our big event is every year I organize an Easter sunrise service at Red Rocks Amphitheater. I don't know if you know about that concert
Oh, my
venue.
goodness. Yes, that's one of the most famous concert venues in the country.
No doubt.
Yep. So, if the weather's good, we get 10,000 people in that space. And a lot of people aren't even ones who go to church regularly. So it's just a really great coming together of folks. And for this journey, I have to thank our friend, the late John Edgerton. It was really his book, Southern Food at Home, On the Road in History, that caused me to do this shift, because he wrote this one sentence that changed my life. He wrote in that book, "The tribute to Black achievement in American cooking has yet to be written." And so investigating that, I reached out to him and I said, I wrote, "Mr. Edgerton, I loved your book. You wrote this one sentence. Do you still think this is true?" And he said, "Yeah, no one's taken on the full story. There's always room for another voice, so why not yours?" So that's what launched this journey.
Good old John Edgerton.
That is an amazing story, and of how many people in the world he influenced and changed their lives. And that is a great story, Adrian. And so that set you on your mission.
Yeah, so with no qualifications at all, except for eating a lot of soul food and cooking it some, I decided I'm gonna write that book. I still have yet to write that book because now there's so much information that it would be a monumental task. So I've been doing it piecemeal, bite by bite, as they would say, and it's been fun as well. But yeah,
the books have really turned into another career. I mean, not only as an author, but as a very sought after speaker and lecturer. And I've seen you go everywhere from Africa to small towns, I think I even saw you spoke at a legal convention.
Yes, all over
about food.
Yeah, believe it or not, some of my best clients are law firms. So I talk to law firms a lot.
Well, you can speak the lingo if you have to.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. So,
I'm sure for them it's a great break to hear about food.
Right. And the thing that's in most of these settings, the thing that's at my advantage is low expectations, because people are expecting a very dry presentation. I have a lot of fun when I do it. So they're like, "Oh, this is great." I've been told several times I should think about stand-up comedy, and I tell everybody, "Well, look, you're not paying for these jokes." So that's
Hey, Adrian, are there any young, up-and-coming African-American chefs that you see out there that are on your radar that you could share with us to be looking for?
She's been on TV a little bit, but Michelle Wallace has been on a few competitions. She's based in Houston.
Okay.
She is someone that I really have enjoyed watching her journey. I'm not going to pronounce his name correctly. He's really blown up, but Eric Adejapong, who's got Nigerian background, he's coming out with a new cookbook very, very soon. So those are two examples that immediately come to mind. One thing about that's exciting right now is we're seeing more Black chefs kind of connect to West Africa. And so what I call diasporic dinners. So there may be a course. The first course is based on some African dish. Second course is based on some Caribbean dish. And then the next course will be something personal, whether they live in the Caribbean or South America or the American South. They'll have something personal. So it kind of just shows the migration of Black people, and they're telling a story through the food. Right. I think that's really cool and exciting stuff that's happening right now.
Yeah, the migration through the different courses is an amazing idea. I love it. I've not seen that.
Yeah. And then you've got Nick Wallace in Jackson too.
Yeah, you're right.
He's doing cool stuff. So
yeah, we love Nick. He's been on the show. He was on the show recently.
Yeah.
And I have to say that to Adrian's point, one of our wonderful African-American chefs is Enrica Williams from Jackson, and she travels and does people hire her to come to California or to Houston to do these big dinners. But she cooked a dinner for me. I had a luncheon for a group I'm in that just happens just by the nature of it to be. It was like 50%. It's half and half African American and Caucasian women. And we were having a retreat, and I thought, this would be really fun to introduce Enrica and what she's been doing. And she did just what you said. She cooked a Caribbean meal with rice and beans, and it was like a pork that had been cooked down with all these flavors of Costa Rica. She had just been down there, and it was incredible. But she always brings in about, it seems like 5 different cultures to every meal. And I met her through her sweet potato soup. I tasted it. It was a sweet potato soup, and it had peanuts, and it had like a green chili oil drizzle. This was a few years ago, and I had to go back and meet the person who cooked that. So that's how we got to know each other, and I had her serve that soup to my friends.
Awesome.
Yeah, that
delicious. And next time you come through, we'll have you meet her.
Okay. Enrique.
Enrica. Yeah, I'll send it to you, and you can read about her. She's absolutely fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we're again blessed to have her on from time to time here, and she's one of the up and coming stars in this geography, along with Nick, of course, as you mentioned.
Yeah, and back to some of your speaking. I wanted to just hit on some of the topics that you're available for, and I've been reading. I read several reviews, and it sounds like you are pretty funny, and. Somebody said, Adrian fed our souls.
Yes, I love that. Mission accomplished.
Right. No need to pay me.
So what are your topics?
So tracking my books. So I'll do a soul food talk. If you want a faith angle, I'll call it the theology of soul food. I'll do a barbecue talk, faith angle, theology of barbecue. And then I do the black chefs in the White House. I can also do presentations on the women who have cooked in the White House. Most of our presidential cooks have been women. And of those women, most of them have been Black women. A lot of people don't know that. I can talk about the Asian American ones. And then I have then this one's really popular with law firms. I have one called Juneteenth, the latest word in freedom. And so what I do is I talk to people about what actually happened on Juneteenth and leading up to that. Because there's a lot of myths about Juneteenth. And I tell people, no, this is actually what happened. And then I pivot and talk about the food traditions associated with Juneteenth. So we talk about red drink, barbecue, red velvet cake, watermelon, and all those other things, and how they connect to that particular day. Those are the main talks that I do.
And where can people find you who might hear this interview? Where are you located out in the land of the internet?
Well, my brother, I try to make it easy. So if you just put Soul Food Scholar in any platform, you'll find me. Whether you're on Instagram, Facebook, or just on the web. Yeah, Soul Food Scholar, you'll get to me.
And the new book is out in May. Is that still the date?
Yeah, May 8th is the publishing date. So really excited. Look like everything's on track for that. So I will be in Washington, D.C. at an event hosted by the White House Historical Association. And here's the really cool thing. They have a gift shop right across from the White House. So where millions of tourists go through, that book will be on display. So I might sell 100 copies. I have a really good chance of doing that.
Well, we're going to help you sell some copies too.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, really excited about that. And Adrian, I love how you promote other people and events. I see that you were promoting the Edna Lewis Foundation Scholarship, and that was one thing I hope we have time to touch on because I think that we probably have a lot of people in our listening audience that could apply and would qualify for that.
Yeah, so Edna Lewis Foundation, a lot of our friends are involved with that. For those who don't know, Edna Lewis, a legendary chef, I believe that her Taste of Country Cooking is one of the best cookbooks ever created. Yeah, So the foundation is about supporting young culinarians in this space. They've got money and they've got scholarships and support. So try to push that out as much as possible. My sense is that they don't get a lot of applications, believe it or not. So the more that we can just encourage people to apply, I think would be great.
You know, I just Googled it. I saw that you had posted it, but I had forgotten. So I just Googled Edna Lewis Foundation. And it came up, and they're actually $5,000 scholarships for African-American chefs over the age of 21.
Wow.
Yeah.
You had one more point, Adrian.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I said...
No.
That was... I thought you said there was one more.
Yeah. No, I was just saying that, we have to get the word out so people will apply. Yeah.
Great.
And the scholarships open April 13th.
Yeah. Which is her birthday.
Yes, and we keep up. We love Ms. Lewis's work. We've had Scott Peacock, who keeps her legacy alive, on the show before. So we're all about Edna Lewis, and we'll help get the word out about the scholarships.
Absolutely.
Oh, great. Thanks.
All right. Comes the time for us to go. Adrian, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Happy trails to you, and good luck, my brother.
I appreciate you. As always, been a pleasure. And until next time, peace.
Peace out.
Peace,
all right.
brother.
Deep South Dining is a production of Mississippi Public Broadcasting's Think Radio, and we are funded by generous contributions from listeners like yourself. Our show is produced by Marissa Vaughn. For our very special guest, Adrian Miller, for my co-host, Carol Palmer, this is Malcolm White saying, now please stay tuned for a special President's Day programming and join us every Monday and every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. for more Deep South Dining, heard right here on MPB Think Radio.